Good day, everyone. Hope everyone is having a good day. So today we are going to talk about Russia-China relationship in respect to what's happening uh, now in the global order and how they plan to counter, you know, uh, the Western hegemony and if there's a possibility of the relationship everlasting. Without further ado, please like, share, subscribe, and let's get straight away. So China and Russia relationship has been a very high and low kind of relationship since its inception, uh, especially in the 20th century. When we look after the Second World War, uh, when Mao Zedong, through his revolution, took over China, he was heavily influenced by Marxist and Leninist ideals. And so he formed a communist countries based on these ideals of Lenin and Karl Marx. And his neighbor, the USSR, was a superpower at the time, which also followed Marxist and Leninist ideals. And Mao Zedong has not shied away from saying that he was heavily influenced by the USSR. He saw the USSR as a big brother. It was a powerful country that challenged the US. And Mao Zedong's, aspired that his USSR could be his China could be like USSR and look up to the USSR and also become powerful like the USSR. So to the first instant of the interaction and trying to solidify the friendship came in the 1960 when they signed a treaty that guaranteed that Soviets would help build the Chinese build nuclear plants, make their own arms, train their armies, uh, train Chinese personnel into understanding physics, chemistry, and all these technology transfer. The treaty was supposed to last 30 years. But the treaty never made it to 30 years because in the start of 1968, tensions started growing between the USSR and China in terms of the USSR started growing very suspicious of the Chinese government since it was now copying, Russian technology, using Russian technology. And the USSR saw that China might try and become a threat. Also, the Chinese never felt safe because of the USSR, because they started seeing that the USSR was becoming too powerful and trying to meddle into the internal politics. There's even a meeting between Russian official and Chinese official in Moscow where Russian officials even tried to insinuate that if the Chinese wanted a healthy relationship to continue between China and Russia, they should oustar or remove Mao Zedong, which didn't go well with Mao. And he felt very betrayed because he always looked up to the USSR. So, in the late 1960s and early 1970s, there was a lot of suspicion. Uh, USSR had tried to counter, the Chinese dominance in the region by interacting with India. That's why we even see today that India and Russia are very good partners. And the American also took advantage because they tried to bring China on board because they feared that an alliance between China and Russia would be a very powerful alliance to fight against. So all these cocktails of mistrust and everything made the relationship to stagnate. And by 1980, the treaty that was signed was supposed to last 30 years. The treaty was dormant, and by 1980 it had ended. So 1989, we see Mikhail Gorbachev and Deng Xiaoping. They meet in China, and the aim of this visit is to try and restart the relationship. We all know that Deng Xiaoping is the economic genius of who made who brought the industries and the manufacturing sector and combined capitalism and communist in China. And what China is today is the economic genius of China. And even when the Soviet Union collapsed, uh, the new Russia still continued this partnership with China. In fact, in the early 2000s, they even signed a friendly neighbor treaty where they agreed they'll never use nuclear weapons against each other. In the year 2001, they agreed to cooperate in the Shanghai Cooperation. Um, organization where they will share intel, security intel, about terrorism, about drugs, and all these illegal activities. So the China and Russia relationship has been cemented on the fact that, when you look at how it has come, on the fact that they both have a common enemy, which is America. And that saying that says the enemy of my enemy is my friend. So to them, they see America as the enemy. And so even though they don't literally, uh, their relationship, even though it's close, but it's parallel. And sometimes they don't agree on other issues, but they still have a common enemy, which is America. And their partnership has been growing and becoming bigger and bigger. And when you can see it, especially in 2012, when President Xi, of China, entered, ascended into power, he has become very good friends with Putin, and he's become the first Chinese leader even to meet a Russian leader for so many occasions. He's met since 2012 till now. He has met Putin over 40 times. They've signed dozens of bilateral deals, and they seem to be very good friends, and they understand each other. And when you look at how the relationship has been molded, President Xi and Putin, both of them see America as the antagonist, and they are trying to establish this new world order where they'll work uh, to undermine U.S. influence. So after looking at all these things, you can see that their relationship purely is based against the Western ideologies. Um, where do the why are they uh, why are they against America that much, and why do they see themselves as relatable friends? We must first remember that President Xi and Putin are strongmen. They run an authoritarian government. The Chinese government is a communist government where it's a one-party rule. The Russian side is a multi-party state, but only one party calls the shots, and that's Putin. Putin party is very strong. Both leaders, see themselves as infinite rulers of their countries. You see, Xi Jinping removed term limits, so now he can probably rule for a couple of years and probably president for life. Putin also has done the same. Both of these leaders undermine the rule of law. Putin, he undermines the rule of law. Also, the President Xi undermines the rule of law through his government. And so there are a lot of similarities in the way of governance, and that's why they see themselves as more agreeable than their counterparts, the Americans. And when you look at this relationship, it's a more of a relationship of let's deal with the Americans and then we'll sort ourselves once we deal with the Americans. And you must remember that at where China is now it's a very powerful country. It's the second largest economy, and through this Western hegemony that Putin and Xi fear, when you hear to professor like some of professors of politics argue that the Western countries should have tried to make the deal with Russia and not let Russia go into Chinese arms, because a survey was carried in America that shows that in fact most Americans, more than 60%, fear the alliance between China and Russia, because Russia is a nuclear power and China is an economic power. And I'm not saying that their relationship is solid, because there are very underlying issues that they haven't sorted out themselves. Because if you look at a country like as China, there are some officials in the Chinese government who view Russia as the underdog, because China is the second most powerful economy, and its economy is 8 times of Russia. If you look trade between Russia and China, it's $147 billion. but the trade is in balance because Russia depends a lot on China. And on the other hand, you go to the Russian side, the officials are also wary of the Chinese because Russia in terms of military technology, it's way ahead. So even the sale of weapons, if you look, Russia doesn't want to be a junior partner when it comes to China. It wants to see itself as an equal. There's a lot of mistrust from the Russian side, and you can see that China at once was the largest arms buyer from Russia, but now they've reduced because their military industrial complex, is growing, and and also another reason could be that the Russians are also wary of giving the Chinese, their military hardware because of re-engineering and copying. And you can see how Chinese approach, especially these times of suspicion, because when the sale of the S-400 missile defense system that the Russians have, which is considered one of the best, in comparison with THAAD, which is also one of the best of the American THAAD system, and Patriot, you see that the S-400 was really opposed by the Russian elite, the military elite, because they thought that the Chinese would re-engineer and copy their technology. And this you can see probably it's true because unlike countries like India, Turkey, which buy these arms in large numbers, the Chinese don't buy in large number. They buy like two S-400s, one S-400, then they go and study and re-engineer. So, you can see that even though they're united against the America, between them there's a lot of mistrust. They don't, they are still not sure of how to cooperate. But the sanctions that Russia has faced and the isolation, it has no option. It's being pushed to China's arms, and that's why people are saying that Russia is now becoming a junior partner of the Chinese because immediately the sanction entered, Starcard, Visa, and all these companies pulled out, but Alipay from China filled in the market. Now China is the biggest buyer of Russian oil and gas, and they have a relationship that where China is energy hungry and Russia has an abundance of energy. So that's their relationship. Russia supplies energy to China, and then China gives Russia the Russia money. If you look at the companies that pulled out of the Western companies that pulled out of Russia, Chinese companies are looking to fill this gap. So you can see that more and more it's revealing that Russia has no option but probably to depend on the Chinese government. And we must remember that China and Russia alliance is not in treaty. It's not like NATO or Quad. It's more of an understanding, and we saw it when before the war started, Putin visited China, and Xi and Putin decided a no limits partnership. I don't know what that means. It's not clear, but it's a no limit, and they decided to work together and cooperate. Even when the Beijing Olympics of 2022 were in China, most Western countries abstained and they protested, they won't go. But Putin made an effort. He went individually, and he was there with Xi. So they are trying to show that their relationship is strong, and they're working together. And the main enemy is the Western and American side. And when you look at their military budget, you find that the Chinese military is number 2. Russia is way below because they spend about 50 to 40 billion. And now it's gonna even reduce even more because of the sanctions. So Russia has no option but to work with the Chinese and try to form this alliance. One thing that I think that we should also look into is the fact that China is, China sees itself as being encircled by all this power because down there you have Australia, the other side you have Japan, you have South Korea, you have Philippines, you have India. So it needs another country that it can work together to try and destabilize, and in fact, the Americans view the Chinese as their long time strategic threat, because what China has done is that it has tried, to replace America, in terms of economy and its influence around the world by bringing projects like Belt and Road Initiative, that will sway country into their side using win-win kind of cooperation. So the America sees China as a country that's going to compete along with American interest, and which is a threat to their strategic position. But America views Russia as a spoiler. It doesn't view Russia as a strategic future threat, or as a long-term threat. It views it as a spoiler, as a country that an antagonist, not like a real threat as China. And you can see how a country like Russia operates. It operates as like as an antagonist, by influencing the American election, cyber warfare. Apart from the way in Ukraine, the Russian government has been, less confrontation, but use other means, non-military tactics to destabilize country. So the US views Russia as a spoiler, although it's still a threat, but the long-term threat of the American hegemony is China. And so when you see these two coming together, you can see that one offers financial and global dominance, and the other country offers, this kind of spoiler mentality, and creating anarchy and all sorts of things. And it will be interesting to see how these politics play out in the future, because as we go on, Russia and China seems to be coming together and together. We remember even this year when Biden was in Japan and South Korea, military deals were conducted. Chinese bombers and Russian bombers flew over near Japan. So that was a show of sign that they are together, they are working together, they are understanding each other. And I even expect when Xi will be added another term this year, probably one of the first few countries is going to visit is Russia, or meet with President Putin to extend, this partnership. But also Russia is also working on a very tight rope, because it has a very good partnership with India, and India has its own issues with China. So when you look at this dynamic, this relationship, it's not, it's a very complicated kind of relationship. It's not a relationship like the one you can see between Europe and America, where everyone has a common understanding. How you see Russia operates. Russia now doesn't care about its image. It's a spoiler. It attacks a country, and then no, it doesn't care. But a country like China is really reserved. It's looking at its future interest, at its long-term interest. That you see a country like China is not proactive, even though it has issues with the US. It's not trying to do its own, to cause fear and cause issues. It's very strategic in how it approaches its own things. And it will be interesting to see how it goes, and how they work together. But they both have a common understanding that America, NATO, Quad, all these alliances are geared into undermining, undermining Russian and the Chinese influence. And probably in the future, they might even be forced to form their own defense alliance, because at the rate that things are going, you can't expect less. But anyway, guys, share on the comments and like and subscribe, and then we can engage. This is something I'll keep on looking and see how it goes, and then I'll give you updates. Thank you, guys. Cheers.